Good morning and welcome to episode 17 of the Fintech Insider Breakfast Show, a show from the folks from 11FS bringing you the breaking news around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday at 8:30 BST. As we're going to all be cooped up over the next couple of months, we thought we'd try and make your start of your day just a little bit easier every day. What we're going to be doing is bringing together people from the 11FS family as well as friends from 11FS around the globe. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Olly Betts, who is the co-founder and CEO of OpenWrks, which is the team behind Tully. And last week, they launched the Tully COVID-19 Relief and Wellbeing Network. So today, what we're going to be talking about is OpenWrks, Tully, and how those guys are actually leveraging open banking and helping people who have been financially impacted by everything that's going on with coronavirus. I know we thought we'd go one show without talking about coronavirus, but maybe in about 2 months, 3 months time, we'll get there. So as always, we do love the comments and questions that sort of come through on the chat. So keep that coming. Let us know where you're tuning in from this morning, because it's been fascinating to see where everybody's actually jumping in. So, but first, Olly, thanks for joining me so early in the morning.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Morning.
How you doing? How's things? Where are you? Where in the world are you?
I'm in Nottingham, so up somewhere sort of in the north of England, safely, in lockdown. But yeah, up in Nottingham. But I'm thankfully and quite lucky to be out in the countryside, so fresh air's not a problem.
Yeah, there does seem to be a definite, people who are sat in somewhere where you can get out into like green open spaces right now. I think are feeling a little bit better than the people who were cooped up in, flats or whatever in sort of central London or anything. But it's, I'm very grateful. I mean, the 2-hour commute from Norwich to London has been like the bane of my life for most of my life, and suddenly now it's an advantage. It's kind of weird,
Yeah, I'm probably in a similar boat with that. Yeah, slightly different train line, but similar kind of experience. I think it's fair to say my garden's never looked better. It's going to look pretty good after this.
Do you know what? It's weird. We're suddenly all getting to all of those things that we never really got around to doing before. Although I saw something quite funny online. People were saying it turns out that thing I've been putting off for 5 years because I said I didn't have time to do it. Turns out I just didn't want to do it. So it's now you've got the time, you've got no other excuses. So I mean, how's things affecting you then? Because obviously, you work predominantly in London, don't you? So how is the sort of pandemic kind of affecting you and business right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. We do rely on kind of getting down to London traditionally quite a lot to speak to. Our investors are based down there. Most of our client base is down there. A lot of our partners are in the city. So I spend a lot of time, down in London, kind of managing those relationships. I think that's been quite a big impact for me personally. Is just how I think about adapting to how I do that. I rely a lot personally of my time is building relationships with clients or partners. It's building morale within teams, and a lot of that I kind of feel like I've spent my career building the skill sets around how to do that face to face. And so that's been a bit of a adaptation to how you kind of manage to do that remotely. But I think everyone in our team's been fantastic at kind of responding full remote working now. I think we're into week 4 of that. Lots of clients, large and small, kind of adapt as well. So obviously you get some people better at VC than others, but I think that's just a natural kind of transition. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I think we've had to have different conversations with our staff. It's kind of brought everything a little bit more into around what you're on. I think for me with my team, it just brings out, I didn't really need to realize before that about 65. Right. So that's been kind of really interesting when you're asking people how they're getting on. It's kind of really fully isolated, and how we kind of wrap.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? As you say, with different people who are in a situation where they're working remotely. Some guys are not used to that as much as others, are they? So it's an interesting time for different organizations. I mean, I've seen with some small organizations the problem not really necessarily be the technology that they're adopting to. It's more with smaller organizations. It's not really the technology. It's actually just having the ability to keep their humans connected. Very different from big organizations who struggle a lot more with the technology to allow people to work remotely. So, I mean, it's interesting to see, like you say, Olly, how different companies are being affected by it. But most seem to be trying to sort of get through it, don't they? I think we're having some technical difficulties with Ollie's video at the moment. While we're sort of getting them back, hey everybody, loads of people kind of joining in from around the globe again. So Marie from France, how's it going, Marie? We've got Dan Finney. I think I'm probably killing your name there, Dan, but I'll kind of give that a go. Catherine Ann Reed, how's it going? We've got Josie Caesar, good morning. Catherine over in Sydney. Kemi in London. Loads and loads of people are like Charles Lang saying Ollie from East London. So you're so specific. You want to tell us you're from East London here as well. Going Aberdeen. I mean, like we're kind of getting you guys all up in the morning, which is good. So Ollie, are you back with me now? All right, I think we've lost Ollie for 2 seconds on the sound here. I mean, I think the challenge, if you guys are still able to hear me. In fact, if you guys are still able to hear me, give me a comment in the thing. Okay, cool. All right, I'll kind of keep going then. I mean, the as I see it, if I'm honest, while Ollie's connection comes back together, although there's a beautiful what looks like snow leopards there in the background, so at least we get to see in Ollie's house, which is nice. The challenge, as I see it, really for many of the organisations in this sense isn't really about the technology, as I was saying a second ago. It feels like actually it's predominantly a cultural one. This is definitely the thing that we are sort of seeing with lots of people that are out there that we're working with right now is the challenge becomes actually how do you continually keep bringing people back together. There's lots of 11FS, we have lots of sort of different rituals that it makes it sound like witches and warlocks, but lots of sort of rituals to kind of really reinforce what we do as a business, whether it's how we reinforce values or how we state daily priorities, or actually how we pull teams together. And actually those things, a lot of them rely on human interaction to really sort of reinforce where those boundaries are, as well as the pace that these things actually sort of need to be at. So it's a really interesting time for those things, because I think some organizations are adapting really, really well to that in terms of putting in new processes, new practices, and really being in a situation where actually you can really sort of continue the communication in the way that it was done before. And for those organizations that are not really used to doing that, then I think it's a lot harder for them to really sort of continue to expect the same level of productivity that there really has been before. So it's, for me, I think lots and lots of different people are in different states now. And really, I think the ones who adapt, as we've always sort of seen with this, the people who adapt quickest to the changing environment are the ones that always really can actually be a lot more productive in this sense. So, and really, for me, I think there are great opportunities. I mean, things like what we're doing with this show, hopefully kind of bring you guys a bit of value every morning and allow us to stay connected with the community in a way that actually, if we stuck to the things that we were doing before, would never have been. So there's always opportunities in every weird place. I sort of tweeted earlier on, there's always sort of opportunities when it's raining to sort of get out there and enjoy it. But Ollie, I think
yeah,
yeah, no worries. I mean, a combination there of Norfolk Wi-Fi and Nottingham Wi-Fi, right? So, but did you go and give the router a bit of a kick?
I've got it right sat next to me. It literally went. I did the switch it on and off again. So I'm fingers crossed now.
I mean, having worked in IT, that solves 99% of problems essentially. But all right, well, what are you guys up to then? So obviously the COVID Relief and Wellbeing Network. What is the network? Tell us more about it.
Sure, yeah. So with the network, we're partnering with lots of energy companies, financial services companies, employers of key workers, even free credit report providers, and we're ultimately helping customers check their eligibility and register for payment relief. And so how the network works for a consumer is effectively, we know that consumers are struggling, sat in call center queues for a long time when they do need relief, struggling to get through. They're actually being advised not to call those call centers because they really should be freed up for the most vulnerable. And so people are even struggling to just get in contact with their creditors, not just banks, but like I say, energy companies and some of their other big expenses. So we're providing a way for those creditors to leverage a digital channel, enable consumers to simply register online, check their eligibility for relief, and do that across their creditors in one place. So that's where the network comes in. So you can register, we'll identify all of the creditors that you have, and you can select those that you want to register for relief with. And then I guess the vital thing we're doing is that we can come on to in a bit more detail if it's interesting, is how we're using open banking to check eligibility for relief, because obviously it's the right thing for some people, but actually for others it might be that they just need a little bit of peace of mind around their affordability, and actually pushing back repayments into the future might not be the right thing for them to do. So that's what we're doing for consumers, and then for creditors it's all about freeing up those call center resources for the most vulnerable consumers, just because really they are struggling with the volume we've seen. One creditor said volumes have gone up 8,000% into the call center, which is just unprecedented.
Wow. Well, I think that's the challenge, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people are just not really aware of what their steps are that they can take, in terms of actually, to your point, any sort of relief from anybody that they will immediately or in the future owe money to. So I guess on the open banking side of things, what is it that you're using open banking for?
Yeah, so there's a couple of key stages. I mean, the first one is helping the consumer to get an understanding of what situation they're in, so effectively to build a budget. So using open banking to understand what are those key expenses. For a lot of people, there's been a shock to income that for some in the extreme is a complete loss of income. For others is maybe furloughed, so it's a reduction in income or reduction in hours. And so helping people understand how that follows through to whether they're going to be able to afford their repayments and which ones. So building that budget up front is vital to check eligibility, but then just as important is an ongoing review of that situation. And we're doing that at least every 30 days so the customer can understand, is relief still the right thing for me? And vitally, the thing we're really interested in is helping the creditors start to think about how they transition people back to payment. So we're really worried about creating a kind of, if you look at mortgage payment holidays, a 90-day cliff edge at the end of that period where people are then suddenly expected to go back to normal. Will they be able to? And is there a kind of longer term financial challenge for these people that we can use open banking to understand what that impact to a reduction in income is having? Obviously, you've also got some changes to your expenses, like we've talked about transport changes, but just understanding how they flow through so people can adjust their budgets and live kind of according to what their affordability is.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some positives, like say from a business and from an individual perspective, there's definitely some positives that, I'm not paying Greater Angular an exorbitant amount of money to try and occasionally get into London. But I think most of this is negative from a cash flow perspective from an individual, isn't it? So, and I guess the challenge here is that, to your point, that cliff, there really is no defined end date. If we could all say on June 1st we were getting back to work, then we could start planning for that. But I guess it is month to month really now, isn't it? I mean, I guess on a trends perspective, PFM has been a thing for a long time, but the focus of actually, it's like marginal improvement when actually there's no end date. Whereas now there is like a real urgency to people to really understand their finances, isn't there? And arguably they've got slightly more time than ever to look at this. So how's the reaction been in terms of putting this out and talking to people about it?
I mean, we've had fantastic engagement from creditor partners. Obviously with Tully, we already work with a lot of those partners to help consumers who are in financial difficulty. To help them with these are people in longer term financial difficulty and how they might need to go into debt solutions to help them out of that problem. So we've got good partnerships in place. I think what we found really fast was we were able to be tuned into what the creditors were struggling with and what their consumers were struggling with. And as you just said, I think the frame has just completely changed from what we're seeing a whole new population of people in financial difficulty that have never experienced it before. We're obviously, all of us are hoping it's temporary, but it really is a crisis sort of situation for people's finances. So actually what we found straight away was kind of all bets were off on how we provide debt advice through Tully traditionally. So we saw volumes of referrals for debt advice just completely reduce. When we got into that and looked at why that was because, again, people couldn't get through into the call center. So it was, and really what people want is immediate short-term relief. It's just suddenly a reset to your budget. To your point on PFMs, it's not those marginal gains around coffee spend. It's suddenly I have no income, or I have 20% less income. I think we've all got used to living our lives in that marginal area where a 20% reduction is enough to change everything and cause you to default on payments. So yeah, I think we've had a really good response from creditors, very keen to join. We've made it super easy to join. I think that's why digital's so fantastic. It's not a complicated contractual arrangement.
Yeah, I'm still here now. Oh dear. Definitely the internet up in Nottingham is definitely sort of failing us today. Thank you very much, Gordon Stanley. Really enjoying these webinars every morning. Well done, David and Guess. Also, thank you to Janet, saying that this is becoming one of the rituals of her morning as well, which is nice. Coming from you, Janet, that means a whole lot. It is an interesting one. It's good to see people starting to use open banking for real immediate benefits. I think often when a technology sort of comes in that has lots and lots of promise, but doesn't really have the urgency to create real use cases that drive real benefit. I mean, arguably, in this instance, as we've been talking about with open banking for such a long period of time, that it isn't really about the fact that it's using open banking. It's the fact that actually it's providing a service that really benefits people. How it happens in the back office, how the magic works is not really the concern of the consumer, but actually when it comes to very similar, I always sort of say with like combustion engines, it's not really about being in a situation where you use I understand the mechanics of actually how those engines work, but fundamentally being in a situation where when I put my foot down, the car moves forward. So in this instance, actually being in a situation where people can really do these things and use them effectively, and it provides them real value, that's the most important thing. So it's interesting times, though. I find, and we've been sort of describing everything that's happening at 11FS is this sort of two sort of trains, really. The first one being how the impact of the virus itself kicks off, which is initially going to be quite a long, protracted, unknown period. And because of the ways in which those things are changing people's kind of lives, then really the government is there to try and keep as many people in business and in practice as possible. And actually, what Ollie's describing for me is, from an individual perspective and actually from a business perspective, if businesses could benefit from cash flow forecasting as well. This is about just keeping as many people actually alive as possible, keeping as many businesses in business, keeping as many individuals cash flow positive as they can be. I mean, Ollie, this is something that people just haven't been used to be doing for such a long period of time, is there? I guess when we live in times of plenty, then people don't have to worry about too much of the long-term planning stuff. But to your point, with regards to like that cliff, could be quite damaging for a lot of people. If you're losing a good amount of your salary for a long period of time and very quickly eating through lots of savings that you or the small amount of savings that many people have, this really is a 6 months from now real major kind of downturn from an economic perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's going to have I think we all know it's going to have a long lasting effect. I think for individuals, even in the good times, the kind of rule of thumb I seem to remember being taught was kind of try and save 3 months of personal runway, 3 months without income. Well, even if people did that, which I think the data shows only about 10 to 20% of people do, that's not long enough. It feels like that's not going to be long enough. It's an unprecedented kind of compression and impacts everyone. Everyone's either employed by businesses that are going to be impacted or are running businesses that are going to be impacted. So I think the longer term,
it feels like that. It feels like that period, that first, even if you're in that 20% who have 3 months of salary saved up, then that's just the first wave potentially, right? So the second wave, where there's much more of an economic downturn, then I mean, we're being very doom and gloom today. Like, I feel like, when we're trying to make everybody feel a bit brighter, but it's things like this that, I mean, the earlier that anybody changes or makes a decision to change or is informed with the right information to make those decisions it's all about elongating runway, right? Whether it's personal or professional.
Yeah, and the way we're looking at this with the relief network is the government are doing, a very good job on the income side of your personal P&L, like the profits. On the other side of your expenses, the creditors with the FCA are looking to do something to try and help those people that need it. It's just not easy enough for people to access. I think speed's really important. There's a lot of talk about the support for small businesses and the money not being there fast enough. It's the same for consumers on your expenses side. You need to get through first time on the phone because you're phoning because you can't make that payment, and it could have a long-term impact on your credit score, on your access to credit when things come back, and all of those things. So you need to be able to get to it fast. You need to be able to stop those payments fast. You need the confidence that it's not going to have an adverse longer-term impact. But the good news, again, doom and gloom, trying to reverse it slightly. The good news is creditors do.
Yeah, I mean, on the creditor side of things, definitely. Just to pick up, I think Ollie's Wi-Fi is definitely not going to cope with this for the rest of the time. But I think on the creditor side of things, the fact that people are actually taking steps to understand these, because I mean, in their sense, it's better to have people who will pay at some point than people who completely default and will never pay again, right?
Yeah,
and
you've got these.
There's a lot of.
Sorry, you've got good customers in this situation. That's a bit unfair to customers who struggle to pay in the normal term. But what creditors referred to as like I say, these are people who have never been in this situation before. They're profitable customers. They're customers that banks want to help, and everyone wants to help get back on their feet. So it's now become, it's not the minority of people that are financially squeezed now. It's the majority. It's all of us. So the kind of game has changed. Creditors are adapting, but they need help to get that support to people, help people understand whether it's the right thing for them.
I mean, a lot of the creditors' brands are really going to be made in this period. The relationships you build with people in horrific times like this are going to be the ones that people will stay with your brand for the longest period of time, right? So I think the companies who come out of this with people together is going to be the ones that are strongest. Some interesting questions kind of on LinkedIn. Is there no internet in Nottingham? No, I'm joking. That's not a real question. So I made a point while you were off that this isn't really about open banking. I mean, you facilitated it through open banking, but we've been talking about what's going to be the use cases that really people don't care how the technology works, just the fact that it does. This is one of them, right? People don't really care where the data is coming from. They care that it gives them accurate decisions to move things forwards, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever been a time to stop the debate about whether people will use open banking or not, and whether they like the idea of sharing data, this is it. This is the fastest way to help people get an up-to-date view, a personalized view of whether relief could help them. And so it becomes an enabler. It's in the background. And what we're really doing is letting people access relief faster where they need it, and helping creditors help people. And so, I think for wider digital and for things like open banking, it kind of is times like these where it can sit in the background where it belongs, and it can just be the enabler.
Yeah. I mean, people have suddenly got a brand new appreciation for what open banking is really set up to do. Tatiana Marsh from Open Banking Excellence says, honestly, people just want to get help fast. And I think that's the critical thing here, isn't it? Good point from Rita Martins, who said, financial services now have highly regulated with capital and liquidity at hand. Do we think other industries should be more regulated after the crisis to ensure cash at the end for the future of crisis? So do you think more organizations need to be putting away more money to be in a situation where they have really that cash runway? I mean, it's difficult because not all businesses really are going to be in a situation where they really understand what the future is, I guess, Rita. So, being in a situation where more of those companies have to do that, it's almost like requiring people to put away more and more money for winter, but not really knowing if it'll ever come or not. There's sort of a limiting factor on innovation to that side as well. What do you think, Ollie, on that one? Do you think there's more pushes with organizations to make sure that they have more cash runway in the bank?
Sorry, David, struggling on audio.
Yeah, I think that would be difficult. So Craig Barnwell said, so I've been self-employed since April last year, no support, which means no bills paid, which has a knock-on effect up the chain, and every day this goes on. I mean, absolutely, Craig, like, sorry to hear you're in that situation, my friend. It's a very difficult kind of one to kind of face into. And as you say, it has not only, I mean, it's obviously at home a pretty big impact from your perspective, but actually through the whole chain from a economy perspective, then more people spending less, the economy slows down, commerce and retail starts to struggle as well as everything else does. So it's a really difficult one that actually the whole system sort of grinds to a halt, really. And we've seen this before, right? The issue that we saw with 2008 when it came to everything that happened from a financial crisis perspective was caused from this exact issue. I guess at least in this one, we've sort of seen this movie a little bit before, but equally, I guess we're in a situation where the banks and the financial services players aren't the people who sort of caused this problem. They're the ones who are really, from our kind of experience with seeing people, working tirelessly in the background to try and change these things. They're actually on the side of good here to try and move these things forward, which is good. Nick Kerrigan says, how do we join up the Olly's efforts with other fintech initiatives like Lightning Aid, COVID credit, and so forth? So, I mean, this is happening. For me, the great thing about the fintech community is people are kind of always talking. So, actually, Olly and things like what Mike Kelly is doing, things like what Simon Van Scalina and Jamie Campbell are doing with COVID credit, all these things are tying up because the fintech community comes together and talks, which is great. It's nice to see in times like this where so many people are being affected by it personally, that so many people are actually going out and spending time to help the community. Olly, that's a great thing. It feels like giving everybody the ability to be a little bit selfless during this period, if nothing else, takes your mind off all the situations that you're in. But it's nice to see people keep doing stuff good for the community as well. What do you think, Olly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fantastic to see all the collaboration and people stepping up, pivoting, reacting to the situation. I think this is the great thing about being digital businesses, data-enabled businesses. We can help consumers. We understand the challenges they're facing, and we can kind of step in. And I think, again, now is the time to stop asking questions about whether digital is the right thing and just start leveraging the capabilities people are developing. We're really keen to partner with the other fintechs as well that you mentioned that are doing great stuff in this area, and obviously work with creditors, get them. Our ask of all the creditors is sign up to the network and we can notify you of customers that need your help, and that's what creditors want to do. So it's kind of, let's all get together and help people through this, because it's it's not going to be easy, and we're sort of, everyone's looking forward to coming out the other side, but we need to come out stronger businesses, individuals, so that we can really get back to normal.
Sounds good. I mean, I don't think any level of pre-planning of this one could have made us be in a much of a better situation, as you say. But it's kind of what we do over the next couple of months that really matters. So, I mean, if you needed anything from the community, what would be that somebody could get in touch with you to kind of give you help to make this really impactful right now?
Yeah, I think for us in the next week or so, being really urgent about it, it's getting creditors into the network to receive notifications about people that need help. So creditors can contact me on LinkedIn, it's Olly Betts, or they can go to tully.co.uk and find out. We can get people up and running within 24 hours on that notification side. It just means we can help more consumers. We've got 23 million consumers we can reach through the partners today. So we're going to have lots of people that are going to be wanting to speak to get relief from their creditors. So it's get those creditors in the network.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, for anybody who's listening or anybody who's watching this now or later for that matter, then get in touch with Olly with anything that you can do to help this one. I think the more we do, the better the situation will be for everybody. I mean, we're coming to the top of the hour now, so we probably better trundle off and get on with our days. But Olly, thank you so much for joining us and persevering with the Wi-Fi as well. For last time, where can people learn more about OpenWrks and Tully?
So best place to go on this is to go to tully.co.uk, and you can find out all the information as a creditor, how to help us out. If you need to contact me, then LinkedIn's always best, and it's Olly Betts on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. As for me, I mean, at this stage, you know where you can find me, can't you? I'm going to be here 8:30 every morning. That's all we've got time for today with Olly. Tomorrow, if you jump on here, we're going to have Norris Koppel, who is the founder and CEO of Moneys, talking about what those guys are up to, and actually a lot of changes that have sort of come through with the everything that's happening with the crisis for their customer base as well. So, going to be a super interesting show. If you've got any questions or comments for Norris ahead of that show, feel free to drop me a message and I'll add them into the mix. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks so much.